in this video, I kind of want to share with you guys a little bit about what my experience has been being diagnosed with fibromyalgia and how it has drastically affected my life. So let me go back to the beginning. Back in 2006, I had given birth to my son in November, that November. Um, 2 days after giving birth, I was rushed back to the ER because I went into congestive heart failure. Um, Once we got through that, you know, ordeal, we went back home and basically we're excited about being new parents and um, what was, life going to be like. And I thought, everything was fine. Lo and behold, one day I recall just trying to just walk. No big deal, just walking. And um, I started noticing like I was having this excruciating pain. Every step I took was like the worst pain I have ever felt. And I really didn't think much of it at first, but as time went on, it started getting worse and worse. And on top of that, then my hands started hurting really, really bad, just pain, 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 pain. I couldn't squeeze my hands together. I couldn't even hold my newborn son. That's how bad the pain was at times. It was just, again, like I said, probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And I again, didn't really know what was going on. But then my husband, I think he was the one that suggested that we call my doctor and just, tell her what's been going on and to see if she can help, maybe tell me what it is, or refer me to someone who could. So we went to see my doctor. Okay. And so she just started sending me from one doctor to the next because I would go to one doctor. He couldn't find anything wrong with me. I would go to another doctor. He couldn't find anything wrong with me. And I went to another and another, and it was all the same. We don't know what to tell you. We don't know why you're in all this pain. So finally, the last doctor, my doctor was like, look, the only doctor I haven't sent you to see has been a neurologist. So I'm going to send you to see a neurologist. So we were like, okay. At this point, it was like, what's the point? No one seems to understand or be able to tell me what's going on, but, I'll go. Let's go. So we went, me and my husband went to see the neurologist because I must say that my husband was always right there by my side. And I really, really appreciated that. So, again, so we went to see the neurologist, and the neurologist within 10 minutes was able to diagnose me. He told me, he said, you have fibromyalgia. Now, I had never heard of fibromyalgia. I didn't know anything about it. My husband, on the other hand, I think he had a friend whose mother had fibromyalgia, but he really didn't know very much about it. So, of course, we're looking at him like, is this something that goes away? We had all these questions, and he said, unfortunately, there's not a cure for it. He explained what caused it, how it affects you, and all the different uh, symptoms that you'll have and that you'll go through living with fibromyalgia. He said, look, I'm going to put you on morphine. And of course, me and my husband were like, morphine? But he's like, yes, that's what I need to put you on, and it should help you. Now, note, I had just given birth. Um, so I'm still a new mother and actually still a newlywed. But, my husband was a trooper, and we're like, okay. So we went home, and like for 2 weeks, I really, really tried um, using the morphine, but it wasn't helping. It was not helping me at all. And it was just making me really like lethargic. And again, like I said, I still had a newborn to take care of. Thankfully, my mother was there with us. And of course, Tony was there. But again, I'm still trying to get acclimated into being a new mom. So after 2 weeks, I was like, I can't do this anymore. My husband was like, okay, look, let's go back and see the neurologist. So we go back and we talk to the neurologist. My husband explains to him that, look, my wife has been using the morphine for 2 weeks now. It's not helping her. It's been making her feel very nauseated all the time and very lethargic. And we need to know if there's anything else that we can do other than taking morphine. And the doctor looked at me and my husband, and then he turned to my husband and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but your wife is going to have to be on morphine for the rest of her life." Um, my husband was like, "Okay, Ronnie, come on, let's go. Doctor, thank you very much." And we were out of there and actually never looked back. And so we began the journey of trying to find out more about fibromyalgia and how to deal with it because, again, the morphine, it wasn't working for me and I didn't like the way it made me feel. So, again, it was that was a very, very hard time for me because, again, I didn't understand what was going on. Why was I in all this pain? I, again, was a new mom. I was a newlywed, and I just didn't understand what was happening. So at the time, my husband was touring with Roberta Flack. My husband, by the way, is Tony Terry. But yes, he was touring with Roberta Flack, and Roberta kind of just, she just, I don't know, she just kind of, took to me, and we ended up developing a really special relationship. She was there and did anything she could to try to assist me and my husband as far as information and just anything that we needed. She was very supportive and allowed my husband this time with me to help me so we could figure out what's going on. But after a while, Roberta was like, I'm flying you guys up to New York. You guys are going to see my doctor. And hopefully she can help you guys. I know she can. So before we knew it, we were on a plane, me, Dyson, and my husband. He was only, oh, he wasn't even 2 months old yet, I don't think. But I knew I had to go, and I knew that this will be an opportunity to learn more about fibromyalgia, but not only that, how to manage it because Roberta's doctor was a homeopathic doctor. So everything that she used to treat my condition was all natural. Um, and actually, that's what started me on my homeopathic journey of trying to deal with fibromyalgia. Um, homeopathic, in a homeopathic regimen. I tried, and for a few months, it was okay, but after a while, it started becoming really taxing on me because I was still trying to deal with taking care of my son. My husband was, in and out because, of course, he was on the road with Roberta. My mom, she would come in whenever she could. Every other week, I believe she was really either flying to Las Vegas or either I was flying to Arkansas to be with her while Tony was gone. So, and oh, I thank God for my mother because I don't know what I would have done without her when Tony was traveling because, again, I was going through so much pain and I didn't have any help unless she did come And again, she was right there with me. t- to this day. She's still right there, to be honest. If I need her, she's there. Um, but in any case, like I said, I did the homeopathic regimen for probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months. And then after a while, like I said, it was so taxing. I was just, it was just taking too much time because I was either um, putting vi- I was either, what do you want to call, I had vials. I was either taking vials of stuff. I was taking caplets. I was opening caplets. I was taking, uh it was so much, from caplets, from powders, from pills, from oils, from um herbs. It was just a lot, and it literally took me probably at least 20 to 25 minutes to do everything I needed to do, at least 2 to 3 times a day. And that, on top of trying to take care of a newborn and all, it just became too much. And so I decided, I told my husband, I just don't want to, I can't do this anymore. It's too much for me right now. And he was like, okay. Not to mention, homeopathic medicine and being on a homeopathic regimen, it's very expensive. So that's one thing I do want to mention. It is a very expensive um, way to deal with any type of ailment, but again, it's all natural, and I think that's very important. So again, like I said, I did it for about 4 or 5 months, and then I just had to stop. So once I decided to stop, then of course I had to figure out, how am I going to deal with the pain? Because again, like I said, the pain was so bad. There was days I just didn't know excuse me, how I was going to get through. um let's see. I think the hardest part for me was the unknown, not knowing how it's really going to affect me, because I had been told, about all the symptoms as far as depression and what they call fibro fog, insomnia, which, check, all those I deal with. Um, the anxiety, it fibromyalgia, again, I try to tell people all the time, it's not just one thing that it affects. Fibromyalgia affects you mentally, physically, and emotionally. So it's so much going on. It's hard to even know how to deal with anything. Um, it was very hard um, on not only me, but my husband, because now my husband had to come to terms with being a caregiver, so to speak, because his wife is chronically ill. And unfortunately, there's no cure, and we're still trying to understand and learn and research more about it, because we really just didn't really understand or know anything about it. And so we both had to do our research, because he had to know how to deal with it as a caregiver, and I had to understand how to deal with it because I had it. Um, and oh gosh, it was, again, a very hard thing to come to terms with. Now, okay, again, like I said, I was already a new mom. I had only been married a year, and, well, actually, I guess going on 2 years, because I didn't have Dyson until our second year of marriage. So I guess we'd say 2 years in, and to have to deal with again now being diagnosed with a disease that there is no cure for. So as time went on, I just started getting into a deeper and deeper state of depression. I couldn't think straight most of the time. I was literally what they call fibro fog is very weird, and it's real because it affects fibromyalgia affects your memory so bad. I literally had to start carrying a notepad in my purse because I couldn't remember things sometimes, and it would be the simplest things. So again, I had to carry a notepad because I was dealing with fibro fog. I never slept. And again, you weren't going to get much sleep anyway with a newborn, but to have fibromyalgia on top of it was just, it was so hard. And I remember days where I just wanted to die. I didn't want to live anymore. The pain was so bad. I mean, my husband couldn't even touch me on many occasions because the pain was so bad. I couldn't hold my newborn son. I just felt like a failure, and I couldn't understand like why was this happening to me? And then on top of that, people started, whispering around that she's not really sick. There's nothing wrong with her. Look at her. She looks fine. She looks normal. And I'm talking about, I got this, and I'll say we got this from people that were close to us. And I just didn't understand why somebody would think or could think that I would be making this up. Like, if I was going to make up something, it wouldn't be a disease that would cause me this much pain. There is no way I would put that on myself. So, I went through a lot dealing with, like, I can't believe they don't believe me. And I remember finding myself always having to justify why I couldn't do this or why I couldn't do that. I know at one point my husband, he became so frustrated with me because, again, he's Tony Terry. So he had to do a lot of appearances and performances that he wanted me to accompany him to. But because I was in so much pain a lot of times, I couldn't go. And I didn't want to leave my child. Again, we didn't really know at this point. I'm sorry, I never told you guys, okay, we were in Las Vegas, living in Las Vegas when I had my son and when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia, because my husband was traveling so much and I needed help. So if I knew that if I came back to Atlanta, at least it would be much closer to my mother and she wouldn't have to travel across country. She could just, come to Atlanta as opposed to Las Vegas. And also my brothers were in Atlanta. So I knew being in Atlanta, I would have the support and the help that I needed. Okay, now fast forward again to my husband would have, appearances or whatever the case may be that he wanted me to accompany him to. And most of the time I couldn't. Either I was in too much pain or the fact that I wasn't leaving my son with anybody. If my brothers weren't available, um, nobody was watching my son. And, that's just me. Every parent is different. But for me, I was not leaving my son with anybody I did not know. So, again, so that kind of caused, a little friction at times between me and my husband. And what do? There was nothing I could do. It was so bad that I couldn't even plan anything because I never knew if on that day I would be able to go. I never knew if I would be in pain that day so bad that I wouldn't be able to do anything. It was just, it was hard. I mean, you can't, I'm a planner. I like to know what I'm doing, when I'm doing. And because of fibromyalgia, I could never plan or commit to anything because I just didn't know how I was going to feel. And I always found myself having to justify why I couldn't do this or why I couldn't do that. And it was so frustrating. And I remember talking to one of my doctors, and I was explaining to her, it is really hard trying to explain to people what I'm going through. They just don't seem to understand, or they don't believe me, because they look at me and they say, you look fine, you look normal. And one of my doctors said, look, stop trying to justify why. Just stop doing it, because they will never understand what you're going through. I don't care how you explain it. They are never going to understand. And I finally got it, because it was like I said, very, very frustrating, having to try to justify all the time. Even trying to justify it to my husband, and he lived with me. He knew what I went through on a day-to-day basis, but I found myself at times having to justify to him. So again, like I said, it affects every aspect of your life. Um, I wasn't able to nurse my son because I was on medication that unfortunately would get into my milk and would be dangerous for my son. So I didn't have that experience. I think I got to nurse him in the hospital once and then at home once, but then I couldn't do it anymore. The doctor said no, I couldn't do it. So that was disappointing to me. It literally broke my heart because I was really looking forward to that bonding time with my son. I was so excited. So to all of a sudden find out that I couldn't, I was devastated. I was crushed. It really crushed me. But what could I do? I didn't want to uh, do anything that would cause harm to my son. So, of course, if they said I couldn't, I couldn't. But again, that was very disappointing. Um, People ask me all the time, how are you dealing with it? How, at this point in your life, how are you dealing with fibromyalgia? Because you seem to be dealing with it fairly well. And I kind of laugh because what I explained to them is that basically, like for instance, I'm in pain right now. I am hurting so bad, I couldn't even really explain to you how bad I'm hurting. But I have gotten so used to being in pain that it's pretty much a norm for me. I don't even know how I would function not being in pain, because it's been over almost 16 years and pain is all I've known. Um, so I have just learned how to, I guess I like to say, fake it till I make it. In other words, when I'm I might be at a certain kind of event. I might have to go to something with my husband. I might have to go. My son, for instance, he's an athlete. He's a musician, but he's been an athlete since he was 6. He started off playing football, and now he's in basketball. So that's another thing. Having a teenager or a child who's in sports and your husband travels, guess who has to take their child back and forth to practice, to doctor's appointments, to all the things that parents do when they have a child who's very active. I pretty much had to do most of the time by myself because my husband was traveling, he was working. He did, when he was home though, he was very present, and he made sure that he was involved in any and everything our son was involved in. At one time, my husband had was off for about maybe 2 or 3 months, and during that time he was actually the trainer on my son's football team. So they were able to have that time together. A lot of times I couldn't even uh, go to the games when he first started. Like I said, around 6, I did the best I could because if I couldn't do anything else, I wanted to be there to support my son, and I did as much as I could. Um, I wish I could have done more, but even at a young age, my son knew that he knew that his mother was very sick, and so he wasn't, it didn't really bother him because he knew when I could be there, I was there. Me and my son have a very, very close and special relationship, even more so because a lot of times it has been, just me and him because his father was out working. And when I say working, my husband works, and I appreciate him so much because he has always did and done any and everything he needed to do to make sure that not only I had everything I need, especially when it came to my health and medical bills and things like that, my medications. I mean, he made sure that I had everything I needed, as well as made sure that me and Dyson both, we had everything we needed. Um, I know he wishes he could have been there more, um, but he was doing what he had to do to take care of his family, and I will forever be grateful and will forever appreciate him for that. Um, yeah, he's all right. So again, fibromyalgia, like I said, it has truly, truly affected every aspect of my life. Um, I want to say though that I am grateful to have a partner who truly, first of all, loves me enough to support me and help me get through all the things that I have had to deal with because of fibromyalgia. And of course, now, like I spoke to you guys before on my last video, menopause. Oh my God. So, on my next video, I am going to be sharing with you guys what it has been like living with fibromyalgia while also going through menopause. So, I hope you guys feel like you've gotten to know a little bit more about me. And I intend on sharing a lot more with you guys, and hopefully being able to give you guys some information for those of you who are dealing with fibromyalgia. Um, Hopefully, by me sharing my experience and how I deal with it on a day to day basis, will somehow help you in some way. So, again, I look forward to sharing with you guys next time about my experience living with fibromyalgia as well as going through menopause. Take care, and I'll see you soon.